In the last part of the course, we learned to do normalization. And normalization, we had a big table that contained a lot of data. And what we wanted to do was split that data into smaller tables to make sure that it achieves the no redundancy. So we want it to be normalized so we don't have redundant data. Now, let's look at the database that we have been using since the beginning of the semester, the sample database from Blackboard. So let's kind of try to remember what it had. So we had, for example, a table that contained all the customers. We had a table that contained the products that are being sold. And then because this is a many-to-many relationship between customer and product, we had another table called the customer order. And so because a customer can order many products and a product can be ordered by many customers, the only way to store what each product, what each customer ordered was to create another table, a third table that store the primary key from the customer table, the primary key from the product table, and then any additional information like the order date. We could also have the order total, but that's why we had this third table. Okay, so now we have a normalized database that has many tables in it. And sometimes we want to grab information from more than one table. So if I look at the customer order table, it only gives me the customer ID. Now, what if I wanted to see the names of the customers, or I want to see who the customers are that placed an order? So let's just look at one particular product. So if I want to just see customers that ordered product ID 4, for example, this will give me a few customers. Okay. Now, if I want to see just their customer ID, I just want to know their customer ID, I can put here customer ID. This will show me the customer IDs. If I want to see the distinct ones, the unique ones, I can put the distinct keyword in there. And now I see that I have 5 customers that ordered product 4. Okay, so I have, let's just put it here. 3, 5, 7, 9, and 10. So those are my 5 customers that ordered product 4. Now, what if I want to know their names? Okay, well, I know that this gives me back the list 3, 5, 7, 9, and 10. The names are in the customer table, so I need to go to the customer table. Let's select first name. Let's also show the customer ID. Okay, from customer. So I can go to the customer table and say, okay, show me the customer ID and the first name of this customer, where their customer ID is in this list. The select is giving me a list of customer IDs that bought a certain product. And now I'm going and saying, okay, I want you to show me only the ones that have this customer part of that list. And so I should get all the rows that have one of these customer IDs. And I guess I have a typo somewhere. Let's try one more time. There we go. So now it's showing me the customer IDs 3, 5, 7, 9, and it's showing me the first name. And so I had to do that nested select because the table, the data is in 2 different tables. So I had to grab the customer IDs from one table and then go and grab the name from the customer table, another table. And so this is what we're going to actually be doing with the joins. Now, there are different types of joins. There's the inner join, left join, right join, full outer, and cross join, and we're going to learn each one of them over the course of the next few videos. Now, just to note, when you're doing a join between any 2 tables, regardless of the type of join that you're going to be using, there is a certain column that you have to identify as the column with the common information. So if I look back, the piece of information that was common between my customer table and my customer order table was the column customer ID. So there has to be a column that I can specify as being the same. Otherwise, if they don't have anything in common, you can't really do a join. So the inner join, what it does, it finds the intersection between 2 tables. The syntax for it is you say select, and then you put the column names that you want to view from, and then you put the two tables. You put the table 1, the first table, inner join the second table, and then you say on, and you put the column that is similar between both of them. Let's look at an example before we run some queries. Okay. So here I have a join statement that says I want you to select from the orders table. So here we have two tables. This is not our database. This is just another example. So here I have an orders table. So my first table is orders. The second one is customers. Okay. And what I'm doing is I want to see the order ID that exists here. And I want to see the customer name that exists here. So I'm specifying the columns that I want to be able to see in my final table. Where am I going to get this information? I'm going to get it from two tables, from the orders table, inner joined with customers. So I'm doing an inner join between the orders table and the customer table. How am I going to identify those two tables, which rows correspond to each other? I'm going to join them on the customer ID column. So I'm going to the orders table and I'm saying, I want you to go to the customer ID here, and I want you to find the one that's similar. So here I have customer ID 2 and customer ID 2, so I know that these two rows correspond to each other. Now, when it matches these two together, what the join does, it gives you like a big table that has everything in it. And what I want to see is the order ID and the customer name. So it's going to give me 10308 with the name that is here, the customer name. So I am identifying what I want to see as the column names. Okay. Let's do an example from the customer and customer order. So what we wrote here, we kind of want to do it with the customer and customer order table using an inner join. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore the product ID equaled 4 for a second. And we're going to learn how to do that later. So what I want to see is I want to see the customer ID and the first name. And I want to see the ones from the customer table, okay, where it is inner joined with the customer order. And let me just put the from on this line. Okay, so here I'm identifying the columns that I want to see, the attributes that I want to see. And I'm identifying the two tables that I want to get the information from, and then I need to identify the column. Now, because the columns are the same, I have to identify where they're coming from. So I have to say customer ID that's in the customer table equal to customer ID from the customer table. So I'm identifying my two tables here, the columns in the two tables that I want to do a join on, and I'm identifying the tables that I want to do a join on, and then I'm just saying what I want to see. Maybe I want to see the customer ID, the first name, and maybe I want to see the order date. Okay. I think I have a typo somewhere. Let me see. I have a typo here. Let's try one more time. Okay, when I run this, I get an error message that says column ambiguously defined. And this is complaining because one of the columns that I have here, I'm not specifying where it's coming from. I'm just saying, I want you to show me the customer ID. Because both tables, customer and customer order, have a customer ID, it doesn't know which one I want to see. So I have to identify where I'm getting it from. Now here it doesn't matter. Whether I say customer or customer order, it doesn't matter. But anytime you have a column that is common between both tables, you will have to identify which table it's coming from. Let's try running it now. And now it's showing me the customer ID, the order date, in addition to the first name. So I can see every customer, what they ordered or the order date. If I want to actually see the product they ordered, I can also identify that. Okay, now product ID is only in the customer order table, so it's unique. I don't have to append any column name with it. Okay, so I can see now that Lewis ordered product 2. Instead of seeing 3 ordered product 2, I can say that Lewis ordered product 2. So I'm joining the information from two tables to get a better picture of my data. So this is an example of an inner join. Let's look at another inner join example. What I want to do is I want to write a query or a select statement to display the employee's first name, last name, and department. So just let's recall that our employee table stores the employee ID, their name, their salary, and department ID. And the department table stores department ID. So if I want to see the department name, here the employee table has the first name and last name, but department ID. The department name is in another table, the department table. So I need to join employee and department in order to see that. Now what I want you to do is I want you to pause the video and try writing the query yourself. And then once you do it, you get it, whether you get it or you get stuck, then unpause the video and see if you got it right. Okay, now let's ask ourselves, let's pause, let's look at this one and kind of write it step by step. What I want to see is the first name, last name, and department name. So those are the three things that I'm going to write in my select. So I'm going to select first name, last name, and department name. Okay, those are the three columns that I want to see. Where am I going to get this information? From two tables. I'm going to get it from the employee table and department table. So those are the two tables that I'm going to write from department, inner join, employee. And here, the order that you use for the inner join doesn't matter. When we learn the left and right joins, order is going to matter. But with an inner join, it doesn't matter. So whether I put department here or put it here, it doesn't matter, as long as I have department and employee. Now, what is common between those two? What is the column that is common between those two? The attribute that is common is the department ID. So I'm going to say I want you to join them where employee.department ID, department.department ID. So this is the column that I'm joining on. These are the two tables that I'm grabbing information on, and these are the resulting columns that I want to see. And so I get, for example, that Michael Foster works in legal. Okay, now, and Scott Cruz also works in legal. Let's kind of double check that. Let's go and find the ID from legal, from department for the legal department. So legal is department 8. Okay, if I go back to the employee table and say where department ID is equal to 8, I should see those two employees that I was looking at right now. Michael Foster and Scott Cruz, and there are more. But now I've verified that I wrote my query correctly. So again, I put the two columns that are going to be common between those two tables. I put the names of my tables, and then I say the columns that I want to see. If I wanted to see a column that was existing in both, like department ID, okay, if I want to see department ID, this is going to give me an ambiguous query because department ID exists in both. And so what I would have to put here is which table, and it doesn't matter. Both of them will give me the same result because this is the column that is the same in both of them. Now, here, this is the example that I was showing you. If I say department ID, it's going to complain that it's an ambiguous column. So what we have to do is make sure that we append the column name, the table name before the column name. Okay. Now, sometimes column names can become really long. And so what you can do is do table aliases. So when you're defining your table next to the word from and the join, and also with the join, you can say inner join or you can say join. So if you just say join, it is going to behave as if it's an inner join. Now here for table aliases, you can say from employee and then give it a letter. And so anytime you want to refer to that table, you just put that alias. And so here I'm giving E as an alias for employee and D as an alias for department. Let's go and modify our code to do that. Okay, so here what I can do is I can say for department D and employee E, and it could be like EM, you know, whatever you want it to be. And so anytime I'm referring to D, I can just say D. So department, I can just say D, and I can say D here. And so this saves us a little bit of typing. Instead of typing employee dot department dot, it saves us a lot of writing. And just to be clear, we can also here identify where we're getting every attribute from, just so that it's a little bit clearer to anyone who's looking at our query. So it's telling them that the first two columns you're grabbing are going to be from the employee table, and the last two columns, are from the department table. Okay, so this is called using a table alias. You're giving a short name for your table. Now, sometimes to say, show me the employees that only match a certain query. So, for example, here, what I want to do is I want to see the first name and last name. Why don't we try doing it together? Here, what I want to do is I want to see the first name and last name and salary and department ID and department name of all employees with a salary greater than $50,000. Again, you can pause the video, try writing it yourself, and then come back and see if you can get it. But let's start little by little. I want to see the first name, last name, salary, department ID, and department name of all employees. Now, where is first name, last name, salary saved? They're saved in employee. Department ID is saved where? It's saved in employee and department table. Where is the department? It's saved in the department table. So now I've identified that I need to do a join between two tables, the employee table and the department table. Now, I don't want to see all employees. I just want to see ones that have a salary greater than $50,000. So we can use a where to do that. So if you come here to modify this one, we want to see their first name, last name, and we also want to see their salary. Okay, so now I've identified the columns. They're coming from department and employee. Okay, and I said where I want it to come from. And then I'm going to start putting here where salary, and let's put where E dot salary is greater than 50,000. Okay, and so it's going to show me only the only the employees that have a salary order greater than 50,000, and I can order by salary just to make sure. So I saw them. Now, why didn't I have to put E dot here? Because salary only exists in one table. It's not ambiguous. You could also, like I said, you can put inner join or you can just say join. So even if I said join, I'll get the same result. So here I have a table that has 132 rows. And when I run this, I still get a table that has 132 rows. And then if I said department first or employee first, it doesn't matter. So if I drag this here and drag the employee up, reverse the order, I should still get the 132 rows. It doesn't matter. Order doesn't matter with the inner join